least once every 2 years to agree on the projects needed. You know, it used to be once a year? We should really go back to that. Projects developed without community consultation are not to be approved by the bipartisan CDF Parliamentary Committee. There are 26 government agencies that implement projects, usually for a small fee. Funds are provided directly from the Office of the Prime Minister to the implementing agency, not through the Member of Parliament. The CDF unit monitors project costs and implementation, so if you have questions about how the CDF are run in your community, contact them. To ensure no one project or community gets all the funds, there are 6 project categories with spending limits for each. There must be no less than 5 and no more than 20 projects each year. To learn more, visit jampja.org to view your MP's CDF info and tell them how this fund has impacted you. If you don't see your MP's CDF reports, then put them under little pressure, man. Call, tweet, email. Ask them when they'll submit it and when is the next CDF meeting. Change is possible. It's already happening. What we need is you. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Good things are happening in Jamaica. Our unemployment remains the lowest it has ever been, which means more Jamaicans are working and can provide for themselves and their families. Your government is building Jamaica.
Jamaica's economy is in the best shape ever. Everybody abroad and abroad talk about it. Your government is investing in our hospitals, parks, community clinics, roads, and water infrastructure.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
The Live Good initiative is aimed at promoting healthy, respectful relationships at home, at school, and in our communities. Let's return to the days when members of our communities all participated in rearing our children with kindness, good manners, and discipline. Let's respect each other. Let's become our brother's keeper. Let's replace violence with understanding. Let's all strive to live good.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding. Mosquitoes will breed in any container that holds water.
Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, barrels, buckets and tanks. If this cannot be done, pour cooking oil on the water surface. Punch holes in all tins, plastics and beverage boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover all tires or fill with dirt to prevent water collection. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs. Use mosquito repellents to protect yourself from mosquito bites. Dispose of garbage properly by placing in plastic bags and securing properly to prevent water collection.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicai.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
To fight crime and violence in your country,
Your government has invested over $9.7 billion into national security systems. This includes the construction and renovation of dozens of police stations, the acquisition of critical security equipment such as patrol vessels and police vehicles, the recruitment and training of more police officers, and the build-out of the Jamaica Defense Force. Your government is investing in your safety. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister. Most Jamaicans will tell you corruption in politics is deep-rooted, and I just saw it said, and nothing can do about that. But actually, there is, and another 152 countries are doing it. It's called asset declaration, and it works best where citizens themselves understand it and help to ensure the law is enforced. Corruption happens when public officials abuse their power to benefit themselves, family, or associates. Jamaica's Integrity Commission Act was designed to prevent corruption, and here are 5 things you should know. 1. Under this law, every year MPs and senators must report what they earn, own, and owe, and if they don't, they'll be sanctioned. 2. Their report must include the same kind of information for their wife or husband and children. 3. If they get a gift worth more than $100,000 from anyone who's not family, they must declare it. 4. A summary of the declarations of our Prime Minister and opposition leader must be published where the public can read it. 5. Parliamentarians can now be prosecuted by the Integrity Commission. They can be fined up to $2 million or serve up to 2 years in prison if they don't file the declaration or if they give false information, and $500,000 for not filing on time or ignoring requests for information. Unfortunately, our parliamentarians made changes that prevent the public from knowing when they've broken the law or when they're being investigated. We really need to change that. Visit jampja.org to find out more about the Act and to track if your MP is obeying this law. If they're not, JAMP's MP Tracker will help you write, tweet, or call your MP. Ask them, you submit your declaration yet? The Integrity Commission clear you? Let's help the Parliament stay honest. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you. Good things are happening in Jamaica. Our unemployment remains the lowest it has ever been, which means more Jamaicans are working and can provide for themselves and their families. Your government is building Jamaica.
Can you imagine getting a marketable skill for free? Your government has made it possible for anyone wanting to learn a skill to get free training through the Heart and STA Trust. Learn a new skill and expand your horizons.
We care about our minimum wage earners. That is why we increased the minimum from the previous increase of 13,000 to now 15,000. And as our economy continues to improve, you can look forward to even more increases. Your government is caring for you.
Jamaica's economy is in the best shape ever. Everybody yard and abroad talk about it. Your government is investing in our hospitals, parks, community clinics, roads, and water infrastructure.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you, thanks to the government's new social housing program, specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Join the conversation focusing on Jamaica's development. Tune in to the post-cabinet press briefings, Wednesdays live at 9 a.m. with a rebroadcast at 9 p.m. right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Remember that big project the government announced them was going to from when? You ever catch yourself a wonder what happened to it? Stop wonder like an outsider and start move like the country belong to you. You have a right to publicly owned information, and the Access to Information Act gives you that power. I know you have enough questions about how government are run or not run, so let me show you how it works. Say mosquito spraying going on in your community, your children asthmatic and you want to know what chemicals are in it. Or what about that Auditor General report on a public official getting twice his salary with no proper approval? Is your taxes and you want to know if they paid it back? First, do some basic searching to see what is already on government websites. If you don't see what you're looking for, make a formal ATI request by completing the application form on the ATI site or sending a letter or email. And remember, you don't have to say why you need it. It is your right to know. Make sure you send your request to the right agency, and once they confirm receipt, they get 30 calendar days to provide the information. A maximum of 60 if extra time is needed. Yes, I know you want access to everything, but sensitive documents are protected from the public for up to 20 years. For example, documents that would expose a citizen's personal privacy, or those dealing with cabinet discussions, the Governor General's office, or information on the investigative activities of the security forces. Any public officer who tries to destroy or hide any official document can be sanctioned. And if you're having difficulties, the ATI unit will help. So, what if the chemicals in the mosquito spray are toxic? What if the agency did not even try to get back the money they paid out? Call or email your MP. Share the concern, because as your elected representative, they can represent your questions to the government ministers in the House. Remember, it is the job of parliamentarians to monitor and hold the government to account on your behalf. Is not every country give citizens this kind of power, you know? And at 20 years we have this law, and we barely use it. So access information and mind your business, Jamaica. Visit jampja.org today to see what information we access to make it easier for you to hold the government to account. Let's do our job to make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Me, I go show them my way of justice.
I'm abused.
I need legal advice. I don't deserve this.
The truth of the matter is, justice there for all of we. The Ministry of Justice has trained more than 5,600 persons in restorative justice practices. More than 200,000 victims have been supported by the victim services. Legal aid has reached thousands island-wide. Make we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today.
No more guarantors for student loan. Your government cares about your education, and we don't want you to ever have to worry about going to university. The Students' Loan Bureau has a loan for you so you can focus on your future. Jamaica improve, heart free, wages increase, housing scheme bill up, we have more opportunities, roads bill, and the dollar stable. We are building Jamaica.
Jamaica's economy is in the best shape ever. Everybody abroad and abroad talk about it. Your government is investing in our hospitals, parks, community clinics, roads, and water infrastructure. Every student attending Heart and Estate Trust under the New Care Initiative will get $15,000 each month to help cover their travel expenses to the Heart School they're attending and get an extra $13,000 each week while they're training.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaicans, practice proper disposal of garbage, and if items can be reused, recycle them. We all have a part to play in protecting our environment from pollution. We are building Jamaica.
Jamaica's population is aging rapidly.
Over 350,000 or 13.2% of Jamaicans are senior citizens. These individuals deserve our care and respect. Very often, our senior citizens are neglected, disregarded, and disrespected. It's time to act. A special select committee of the Senate is reviewing a motion proposing the creation of an Elderly Care and Protection Act to better safeguard the rights and dignity of our senior citizens. We invite you to share your suggestions and recommendations about what should be included in this act. Send your submission in writing to Clerk to the Houses, Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston, or email clark@japarliament.gov.jm. The deadline for submissions is February 15, 2025. Let's work together to protect and create a more inclusive and supportive Jamaica for our senior citizens.
People always say government must be held accountable. But is whose job to keep government accountable, and what that really mean? Well, you see, when ministers and public officials have to provide answers for decisions made and can face consequences for those actions and decisions, that means they're being held accountable. Keeping government accountable is a key responsibility of our elected representatives, and the Parliament provides special tools or mechanisms just for this. As citizens, we need to understand how they work so we can play our part to ensure that the members of Parliament we elect are using the tools and doing their job well. Here are 4 of the primary tools you should understand and talk to your MP about. Tool number 1, Ministers' Statements. To effectively monitor the government, MPs need to stay informed. Every Tuesday when Parliament sits, different cabinet ministers are scheduled to give an update on decisions they're making on our behalf. These updates are called Statements by Ministers. They cover a wide range of national issues that other MPs, media, and citizens schools. So if you ever have a question for a government minister, try asking through your MP. After all, that's why they're your political representatives. They should represent your questions and concerns to the government. Tool number 3, Parliamentary Debates. When cabinet ministers present the government's proposals for new policies, laws, and programs, parliamentary debates allow both opposition and government MPs to air concerns, make suggestions, and endorse proposals. If you ever watch those debates, you know they can get a little fiery. But the debate is important as it informs decisions and continues until a vote is taken on the way forward. Then we have tool number 4, Parliamentary Committees. The general sittings of Parliament are not always sufficient for detailed examination of government work, so oversight committees are formed using government and opposition members to do just that. Some committees like the PAC and the PAAC are in place for an entire parliamentary term. Their job is to monitor the use of public funds to find ways to increase value and efficiency while reducing waste and corruption. Cabinet and state ministers are not appointed to oversight committees since they are a part of the government. Some committees are formed when a need arises. For example, joint select committees are formed to review draft policies or legislation or to probe other matters of serious national importance. Members of these committees are both opposition and government MPs and senators, and these committees will usually invite citizens to share their opinions, concerns, and recommendations. So there you have it, 4 accountability tools of Parliament that are used to make sure government run right. Visit jampja.org to find contact information for your MP. Invite them to meet with the community so they can better represent your issues and concerns in Parliament and keep government accountable. Get involved and let's make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
I saw you want to live. I walk and look over your shoulder. no sleep at night. I wonder if your family safe, your mother, your brother, your sister, your youth them. And when you get catch, are you alone? But not there to help you. You have to talk for yourself a court. And then when you're gone behind the bars, them see them on their road. I live them life and I enjoy life. Gang violence don't make no sense. Leave gang violence alone. Let's work together and make Jamaica a safer and peaceful country. Let's all live good.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Heart and Estate Trust now offers a $100,000 grant to heart-trained individuals running businesses for over a year. They'll also assist with business planning, marketing, skill enhancement, and other support. Your government is building a caring economy for you.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Your safety and security continue to be our priority. We are seeing a downward trend in major crimes, and we are investing $650 million in technology improvement for our police force to provide greater coverage across Jamaica by 2028.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Every student attending Heart and Estate Trust under the New Care Initiative will get $15,000 each month to help cover their travel expenses to the Heart School they're attending and get an extra $13,000 each week while they are training.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaicans, practice proper disposal of garbage, and if items can be reused, recycle them. We all have a part to play in protecting our environment from pollution. We are building Jamaica.
No more guarantors for student loan. Your government cares about your education, and we don't want you to ever have to worry about going to university. The Students' Loan Bureau has a loan for you, so you can focus on your future.
Tell me something. How much time you ever hear the government announce a project and wonder why they must spend millions on this and not on that? Well, if you think there's nothing you can do about how your money is spent, think again. Jamaica's budget is more than just numbers. It reveals our biggest problems and goals, our plans to fix them, and what to prioritize. We can even call it a promise book of what will be done to improve our lives. Now, let's talk about the 4 stages of the budget cycle so we can understand how it works and get involved. Stage 1. Planning and review. The Ministry of Finance sends out a budget call to every ministry, which outlines the priorities and constraints to guide how those ministries prepare their budget. After ministries submit their drafts, the Finance Ministry reviews, compiles, and sends them to Cabinet for review and approval. Stage 2. Parliamentary debate and approval. The Finance Minister tables all budget documents in the House of Representatives. The Standing Finance Committee, which is all 63 MPs, sits to examine the budget documents, and each minister presents their budget and answers concerns the committee has. The committee's report is then tabled in the House, followed by the estimated expenditure, which is tabled as legislation called the Appropriations Bill. That's right, the budget of Jamaica is law. The budget debate formally opens. We have presentations from the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, Opposition Leader, and the Shadow Finance Minister. After their presentations, our MPs vote for or against approval. Like all legislation, it goes to the Senate for their approval and then to the Governor General for his royal assent. No later than March 31st, end of the financial year. Stage 3. Implementation. The new financial year begins and approved budgets are sent to ministries. Collecting taxes, borrowing loans, and receiving grants begin. And so does the spending. Stage 4. Budget oversight. Now, this is where citizens don't need permission to get involved. Throughout the year, operations and spending are assessed by internal auditors and the Auditor General's department that makes sure public entities are compliant with laws and that their financial reports are accurate. All Auditor General reports are submitted to our Parliament's Public Accounts Committee for review and cross-examination of public officials. The Ministry of Finance, Integrity Commission, and MOCA also monitor government spending to guard against poor financial management and corruption. It is our job to review these reports, check the findings in the newspaper, and look up if breaches are fixed at jampja.org. If not, ask your MP what he or she has done to ensure public officials are held to account. No more 9-day wonders. So, did the government follow through on their spending and investment promises last year? What promises will next year's budget have? How will they affect you, and how can you ensure that you get what is promised? For access to the national budget, check out JAMP's easy digital version and contact info for your MP at jampja.org. Then link your MP and see what progress is being made throughout the entire budget cycle. Support JAMP. Let's do our job to make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
In a few, Member Hamilton, who is unable to make it, and Member Lawrence. Welcome to you all. I will now. Read. So we'll go through it page by page. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and our final page, page 10. May I have a motion for confirmation of the minutes? Moved by Member Hilton and seconded by Member Jackson. Thank you, members. We now move to matters arising from the minutes.
Thanks, Chairman. Just one at page 2, the matter regarding the Attorney General's Chamber legal opinion on the matter discussed therein. Question is, was the request made of the Attorney General, and what is the status of his response, if any?
The request was sent. Acknowledgement of the request that was sent was received, so we are yet to receive and we will, I'll ask the clerk to follow up.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, it has been quite a long time between the last meeting and now when the request was conveyed, and I would believe that it should be available because I was advised from earlier that an opinion was prepared but could not have been delivered unless it came from the committee, which it subsequently did. So there ought not to be any undue delay in transmitting that opinion, because to be honest with you, the delay will cause one to wonder if there is some motive from the detention of the opinion having been prepared before. So I believe even before this, we rise at the end of this sitting, the committee, we could ask the clerk of the House if she could obtain from the Attorney General's chamber where it is and let we know before we close the meeting at the end of the sitting.
Member, I understand your point, but I don't think the committee should ascribe any motive at this time. I remember.
No, please, wait a minute. I am not for 1 second, Chairman, suggesting that the committee was. I was preferring my own opinion.
Yes, I know, but I am saying I think it's too early, member. Let us hear from the AG chambers, and as I said, we have I'm asking the clerk to follow up. Okay, member? And I'm sure we will get a response from the AG chambers, and it will be circulated.
No, Chairman, with all due respect, we
Yes,
have a sitting
member.
here for approximately 2.5 hours today. Any of the orderly can convey the message to the clerk of the House. We do this from time to time. While we are sitting, the information can be obtained. It's a mere telephone call. To wait until something
But member, I am not disputing that. I never went there, member.
So I'm going to expect for it to be notified before we rise.
Right. So if we get the information, I'll ask that this be passed to us.
Not if. We should get some response, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
But I was thinking a positive response.
Indeed.
Very well. Can we ask members if there's any other matters arising that wish to discuss that we have not had invitation on? Because there are other matters arising, and we are going to invite our invitees to enter the chambers. Thank you. Let me welcome all our invitees to the meeting of the Economy and Productive Committee. We have quite a few guests here today, and we are going to take BOJ, not because they come with money, but because we, about money. Thanks for that correction, Member Clark. And here I was thinking that they came with money. Because we have met with BOJ before, and we now would like to conclude the matter with the Bank of Jamaica. We had asked for an update with regards to the ABM service, but also, I believe, Member Jackson at our last meeting had made some remarks, and I'm sure you will want to ask you those questions. And so we will now start with Bank of Jamaica. So I welcome the Governor. And Governor, can you just introduce your team to us, and then we proceed. And then when we go to the other ministries, then we do the same. Okay? Very well. Governor.
So, Chair, I have with me today Senior Deputy Governor Wayne Robinson, Deputy Governor Judea Lewis in charge of financial institutions, and Deputy Governor Natalie Haynes, who is in charge of banking at the Central Bank. Chair, I noticed you didn't give us any name, so we're here so often, I guess you know us very well. So yes. We're not worthy of getting the names.
We're working on it, but I'm understand that we ran out of cash to purchase, and that you have just sent some funds, and so because we are just in receipt of those funds, we are now making those name tags.
Next time I'll come prepared. So, Chairman, happy to be here to report on the issue. There's a report that we printed and sent around just a while ago, and whilst you're glancing at it, the other item, that's a report to do with the automatic banking machines, the uptime, etc. So whilst you're looking through that, I'd also like to report on the initiative that was raised here and which is in your letter, which is the deployment of government, private sector, public sector automated banking machines in areas that are currently underserved, underserved by the ATM network. So in that regard, Mr. Chair, we have asked for some recommendations from DTI. Preliminarily, here is a proposal. It costs approximately $12 million to set up ATM operation, meaning the vestibule as well as the machine itself. Remember that the concept was that government would find a place that is secure and that had power supply, telecoms, etc. And I believe it was suggested that police stations would be a good location. So for $12 million, the vestibule would be set up, the machine installed. The operation of the machines themselves costs somewhere between 10 to 12 million per annum. That cost would be undertaken by the DTI, and they would use the fees that accrue from the use of the machines to defray that cost. So to the extent that the government can establish the sites, the location, and develop the vestibules, and purchase the ATM machines through the banking industry, we can have these machines set up in areas that are not currently now served by the network. I think it's a reasonable proposal, subject to fine-tuning, and which would offer the opportunity to spread the network much more rapidly and to underserved areas as soon as we can get that project underway. I don't know if there are any questions on that, Chairman.
Yes, Chair. I will go first with regards to the question on that. When will this proposal be sent to the government? Because last time we were here was some time ago. So, and have the discussion has taken place as yet. I note that, yes, you are putting together the proposal, but can you give us a time schedule? Because, you know, the inconvenience of citizens in the rural space.
The first step in the process, Chair, is for the locations to be identified. And that, I believe, is more for your side than for the DTIs.
But were we written to send that? Because nobody consulted with me with regards to my constituency or so on. So I just want to know if that communique was sent out to stakeholders.
Well, I was under the impression that Parliament would accept that responsibility and identify the locations. For our part, we were to speak to the DTIs and get them to come up with a plan, and that's what we brought here today. If you wish, Bank of Jamaica, I mean, any member of Parliament could write to the bank and say, here is a location. We would facilitate it, but I don't know where these locations are.
Right. So we just want a kind of tidier approach. So I will ask from this committee, we will, based on what is being said, we'll get the information out to all 63 members of Parliament, and we'll seek some other ways as well to involve other stakeholders within the rural spaces to see where we can get some key input. Okay, so we are committed to that based on what you have said. I'll ask the clerk to assist us to get that communique. But let me get some other question in from other members. Member Johnson, and then Member Clark, and then we have Member Hilton. Thank you.
Thanks much, Mr. Chair. Morning, members, committee visitors from the various ministries, agencies, and in particular the BOJ, our good friend and partner. In respect of name tag, I think we could just name the seats for the members without having to use name tags for infrequent visits.
Yes.
On the subject, Chairman, I wasn't so pleased with the response about the locations of the ATM machine. But before I go to that, you gave some numbers, Governor, $12 million for setting up each ATM?
Yes, that's to create the vestibule.
Yes.
Where it has to be secure and so forth, and then to put the machine in there.
That's the initial $12 million, and then he said $10 to $11 million
per
year,
annum,
per annum
to operate the machine.
To operate. Okay, I just wanted some clarity on those numbers. But in respect of those numbers, Chairman, I'm getting the impression that the financial institutions see the installation of the ATM machines in the various locations as a service they are selling to their customers rather than a service of the bank from which the customers of the banks can be beneficiaries. Granted that banks, as any other business, operate to do and make profit from their banking operations. Services to the consuming public is what is to enhance their own business. And so they make their revenues from their banking business. But it seems like, it appears from the separation of the cost and, as the governor said, the collection of fees from those machines to go towards their maintenance rather than part of the overall operations of the bank. You know, the lights that the banks use in the offices, the air condition, the water that they use, they are all part of their operating expenses in the dispensing of banking services. So if anything to enhance service to the public, it seems like the public has to purchase that as a separate offering. It's like an extra product they are purchasing from the bank because, okay, we'll invest the money up front, you will pay for this particular service rather than part of an overarching enhanced service delivered to the public in terms of convenience, etc. That is how it comes across to me. That said, let me just go on to the second question in respect to the locations. And it ties to my earlier comment about service delivery as part of the overall offering of a bank. I would believe that the Bank of Jamaica and the financial institutions, as astute, service-oriented business people, would have done their own surveys and to have determined where across the country there are deficiencies in availability or sufficiency of availability of machines, to determine where some is needed or not. Not for a member of parliament to go survey and find out how many is needed here or there and make a submission to the BOJ. If there is an intrinsic disposition to enhance service and access, then the onus must not be on members of parliament or councillors or some other stakeholder. Those who are involved in the business, that's where public-private collaboration serves public's interest. The bank's appetite for making profit and enhanced business serves the public. And so we're all in support of banks and their business. So I'm a little bit disturbed, Governor, of that approach. It seems like it's a favor being granted. And that's the reason why banks can close their branches willy-nilly at any location, depends on, because we're captive, we have to come to you wherever you are. So you don't have to really make it too convenient for us. If we are inconvenienced to get the service, that's our problem. It's not part of their disposition to service. And that's the disturbing side of it, Governor. Service becomes a favor and not part of what we offer. Banks are like utilities. They are indispensable to everyday life. We drink it, we eat it, we breathe it. We can't live without it. And so let's not be held at ransom to the, it's not so pleasant, Governor. It's not so pleasant, honestly. It's not pleasant. We said yes when we met about the recommendations of the police station and the post office. Those were areas for consideration. None of us in the House were prescribing that they should be, because the question of safety, etc., was listed, which is a plausible concern. And why we mention those areas, because they do enjoy some level of security. I don't think a police station would consider itself insecure from criminals. And so those are merely for consideration. And in that regard, finally, Chairman, if the banks, out of their patriotism and deep sense of service to Jamaican nationalism, determine that you need a ATM machine in this area because it's badly underserved, say to the government, how can you facilitate us, given the costs involved and things like those, to put it there? Tell us what we can do to assist you. It may be a relatively low throughput, but when you hear people have to travel 30 miles, my colleague from Westmoreland, who is not here, I think he's online, made that report the last time. 30 miles to travel to an ATM machine between banks, because each ATM machine now you can use cards at any machine. You're not restricted to the bank that your card is issued by. Why there can't be some collaboration between the banks as providers of banking service to Jamaica to say, okay, in Claremont or in Kellits or some other rural town, each of us don't have to be content with putting up a separate machine. Let us together collaborate and put a machine so that all the people who use banking service can go there. Let us jointly underwrite the cost for it. Those kind of collaborative things with the intent of improve access to cash. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to come up and think about these things. And that's the reason why I think that there are bright people in the industry. Why the brightness can't shine on some of these service provision possibilities so that the public can feel more pleased. I traveled to Hanover one weekend, and from Kingston to Manchester, I couldn't get an ATM machine work to get some cash to buy some gas. Other people need medication. It's serious. Access to cash is a major, major thing. Major. It can be frustrating to many people. And Governor, the people who you regulate, you have to put some pressure on them.
Member, could I respond? For better or for worse, member, what we have is a private sector owned, run, operated banking institution, network. For better or for worse, that's what we have. And the bottom line is they want to make a profit for their shareholders, some of whom are here and some of whom are watching on TV now. I'm not here. I don't have the power. Parliament has not given me the power to do more than what we are doing, which is to say we want you to uplift the quality of the service you are giving through your current ATMs. We have the report that we publish, which we'll discuss in a moment, all of the public to see it. Secondly, we have gone to them with a proposal to say, even if there are areas in which it doesn't make economic sense, can you hold hands with government and find a way to put an ATM machine? And that is what we're doing here. We're trying to make the best of the situation that exists. So I know the issue of the police station, to members, you correctly say. Remember, cast in mind back just a year ago, security was a primary problem. And that is why the issue of the police station came up. It's not that the banks don't know that there is a community that doesn't have full banking service, but it doesn't make economic sense for them to do it. They don't know where is the best location to put it. Maybe an MP who knows the area intimately can assist. But so it doesn't mean that we're depending on you to find every single location. But some collaboration, some assistance, some suggestions from your side, who should be more intimate with the geography and the locations, would be helpful. Remember, this is one hand grasping another, trying to make the best of a situation that is not perfect.
You know, Governor, every time I hear this story about it's a private business, it doesn't turn me up, Governor. Yes, it's a private business, regulated by the government. They're there for profit, yes. And secondly, as a regulator and a facilitator for the public, the government, and I'm not carrying any brief for any government, the current one, previous one, and one to come, and one that will come, right? We rely, I've been here long enough, we rely on the regulatory agencies, the practitioners, because the truth of the matter, and we have other ministries here, you guys are closer to what happens on the ground than us here in Parliament.
But we need the laws.
But come and we said to you, appeal to us for it. That's why we are here. That's why you come to committees made up essentially of non-cabinet members, because you have a duty, not first and foremost to the executive. You have a duty to the people of the country. That's why you come to the parliament and you don't go to the cabinet. So when you want legislation and regulation to serve the public better, you have a voice. Make it be heard where it matters to the people.
And I'd like to say something too. We are here with a primary mandate.
Try it in. You have a lot of befores. Your mic. Your mic.
Speaking of mic. I hear the governor saying earlier that the regulations, he is asking that for him to do anything that we are in this committee just ask for, that we do, that we give him the laws so that he can do that. I just want to, that was said. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. To the governor. I listened clearly. I heard all that you have said thus far. But my argument is, we have these committee meetings not only to question you, but to hear from you what are best practices, what are your concerns as to the entities or the areas, the sector that you are asked to regulate. We couldn't do it all from Parliament, and therefore we have the different agencies and entities to do that. So we need to get feedback each time you come here. I heard you clearly when you said that Parliament does not or has not given you. So what Governor is saying to us, arising from this meeting, we must formulate something that gives you the authority to go further. Fine. But for example, one bank withdrew their service from the town of Lucy, leaving one other bank. I would like for you to take a drive down to Lucy on a Friday afternoon, anytime 2 o'clock and upward, and see that line for the services of an ATM machine, how far it stretches, and everybody. Because not all the other entities that provide service, the supermarkets and all the others, that takes a banking card. So you have to have cash going there. And just imagine one transaction in an ATM may take a minute, 2 minutes, depending on what you're doing in there. Just imagine how long you have to stand in that line. And you're saying to us, Mr. Governor, that you, basically where you say your hand tied, you can't tell them what to do. It's not about telling them. It's about regulating the situation. You're pulling out. You came to us at the beginning to say that you want to offer services in banking. You're going to withdraw your service from an area. Give us the alternative. Don't tell me you just say pull out, because guess what? Days gone by, where my grandmother used to bank under the mattress or in her bosom. It's done with. And so if you are saying to us that you are here to offer the service, put us in a comfortable position. Every single entity, private or public, does the market research because they want to know where on the scale they are. And so I expect of the banking entities to do their market research to say, okay, it is profitable to move from this location and move to this location, or to set up another location. In Montego Bay, St. James Street, Harbour Street are very close. Yet you have about 3 or 4 of the same banks some time ago in the same vicinity. Why? Because the original St. James Street branch was getting overcrowded. So they had to go to BA West and they had to go further out. Because they did the market research. So I can't understand them telling us that, oh, all right, we couldn't care less whether you want it or not. We are not going to afford you the comfort. When you go up into a satellite community, because you have satellite communities and satellite towns. You have the Cambridge, you have the Anchovy, you have the Wakesfield, you have the Clarkstown. And you wonder, I live in Warsaw, or up in the Alps, and I have to journey from there, pay a taxi fare of $500 or so to get to Falmouth, just to draw from the ATM machine $5,000 to pay a bill. Shouldn't be. What happened to Clarkstown? I suppose to be able to stop in Clarkstown. Wakesfield serves Bunkers Hill, D-Side, Jomili, all of those smaller communities. The bank should have done a market research to say that, okay, this is the satellite town. This is where the taxi that travels from Montego Bay or Falmouth is going to, the passengers are going to disembark, and to take another taxi from here to go to another community. For the life of me, I can't understand. I don't buy it, honestly. I hear what you say. And Mr. Chairman, as I said, arising from this meeting, we need to hold the hands of BOJ and to say, okay, we are going to create that instrument that will give you the authority, the privilege, and the comfort. Because obviously what I am hearing is that rather than you being the regulator of the situation, you are just merely an overseer. You have no power within arms to do what is necessary for the comfort of the people of Jamaica.
No, that's not what I'm saying. If I could clarify. The primary mandate of the Bank of Jamaica, and it is in the Bank of Jamaica Act that is passed by this House, is to target inflation, keep it within the 4 to 6 corridor, and to make sure that there's financial stability within the banking sector. That is what we have been told we must do. Anything else is not a primary mandate. Our legislation is not crafted in a way to give us market conduct powers. We have general moral suasion. We don't have market conduct powers. I cannot fine a bank for the ATM being down less than 90% of the time. I don't have that power. I have to use moral suasion. We have started to craft legislation, Twin Peaks. 18 months we are working on trying to get that to Cabinet, to come to the House, to be passed, to give the powers to the regulators, ourselves and the FSC, the power to do market conduct and customer protection work. We don't have the powers. What I'm saying, Mr. Chair, is this morning we are bringing to the House a proposal that says it's not a perfect situation, but if the government of Jamaica wants to work with the banking sector, I believe Bank of Jamaica can craft a deal that allows us to establish many more ATM machines in areas that are not economically viable. And to the extent that all of the banking institutions are profit-driven, that is the reality that we face. We did
Thank
circulate.
you. But let me hear from Member Hilton.
Chairman, my question is not focused on the banking sector. I want to ask the Governor a question relating to the transmission mechanism for interest rate. So if it is that that the question on ABM is completed. I don't want to have a governor going backward and forward. I'll hold, but if it is...
I think it has been ventilated.
Okay.
So go ahead, member.
Yeah, Governor, it is of concern to all of us, businesses, consumers, everybody, the national public, that I've heard you time and again, literally wringing your hands, pretty much the same way on the ABM, about the fact that the transmission mechanisms or the policy rate to then be to pass through our commercial banking system to the benefit of the public, the business, public household, and others. And it's just not happening. Given the importance of that, especially in this period of high inflation, what specifically is being proposed in collaboration with yourself and the ministry, the government, the executive, to address this issue? Are you aware of any such solution being contemplated? Because we certainly can't continue to just wring our hand in a matter of that critical importance.
Yes, we do have a problem with the transmission system because the banking system, and by that I mean the deposit-taking institutions, that business is dominated by 2 of 11 institutions. And by dominated, I mean they have approximately 60% of the savings accounts. And that's the heart and soul of a viable commercial bank. The power, that's the power that a commercial bank has, the savings deposits. And so the objective is, in the medium term, to democratize, if I could use that word, more the banking system in terms of where people save. But of course, it is people's choice. If they choose to be with just 2 of 11 institutions, it's very hard for us to tell them not to. However, to the extent there are certain rigidities that prevent them from moving when they do want to move, then it is within our power to try to facilitate that. And that is what we're doing with a project called EKYC, where all of the information, know your customer information, is stored digitally and in one place and belongs to the customer, that they can say, I want to move my banking relationship, so please send this KYC data to that institution. They don't have to then go and find a JPS slip and a water commission bill and identify themselves. It's all there digitally. So that is on its way, and I would think that in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll make big progress with that. There are things that can be done in law that could help, and that is something we are contemplating, and that could be more short-term than long-term. Beyond the commercial banks, our transmission system does work and is quite efficient. So that means that if some people may own repos, for example, repurchase agreements, every time we move our policy rate one way or another, those rates move. So that the relationship between our policy rate and the non-DTI sector, those rates is very good. But it's within the banking, the commercial banking sector, that we find there is rigidities and that the rates don't move as efficiently. Either up when we want them to go up, or down when we want them to come down.
But you would agree with me that they tend to move faster upwards than downwards? If that's my observation at any rate.
I would say our experience is that what the commercial banks have done in the last 2 years or so, 2 to 3 years, is new loans have got higher rates, but loans that were there before, those rates have not moved significantly. In addition, savers have not got any better rate, even though the inflation has been higher and the policy rate has been much higher.
Governor, the 18 months for a response seem like the Twin Peaks seem like a very long time. And perhaps the alternative that you referenced really ought to be the way we go, because we do need some relief, particularly in this period, if we're going to grow economy and have people survive, particularly small businesses.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Ariel.
Yeah, first of all, Chairman, it's not very often I find congruence with the comments from the member from St. James, but I can say in the totality of his utterance this morning, I have full concurrence with him, because those comments were very pointed and to the point.
Coming from him, I take it as a plus.
The last comment, Chairman, I'm really, you know, the length of time it takes to get changes, this 18 months period, that affects people's life on an everyday basis. Every day. The suffering and hardships are not abstract, they're not esoterical notion. They deal with people everyday life. I have the experience of people calling me and complaining about the headache that they go through, that they experience daily. And it cuts across all strata of the society, from the low unemployed persons, even people in the financial sector approach me from time to time about their own frustration. It's real. And I really don't think, Chairman, that the BOJ attend to these matters with the kind of alacrity that is needed. I've been in this parliament long enough to see how legislation are rushed through. Constitutional reform changes may take place in one day. One day. And these legislative changes are regulatory changes that can cause the man in Hanover, in Clarendon, where you're from, life to be easier. Must wait another 18 months, another 2 years. Those insensitivity governments is what hurt people out there. And they feel hopeless.
It's a parliament that makes law, not
no, you know, I want the DOJ, submit to this committee a list of legislative and regulatory changes that have been made to your ministry for changes which have not been responded to. Because we get this response all the time about Parliament need to do this and Parliament need to do this. And I wonder who is talking to who. So to the extent that Parliament needs to make the changes, tell us what changes the BOJ has recommended and when it made those recommendations that the government failed to take here. Failed to take here. Because you have said these changes, you recognize them, you know they are there, and they need to be made, but you don't have the power, and Parliament have to give the power. As I was saying earlier on in my comments, you, the regulators, in not just you, but all throughout the government service, you are closer to the action than us. And with all regard for whatever minister, they rely upon you. When I was in another place as minister, it is the agencies have to tell me what their experiences are, and I have the duty to take it to the cabinet and to take it to Parliament. We are not so much aware as you ought to. And the point my colleague said here, you know, you are the ones that must know and tell us. I don't want this cover about Parliament need to do this. And so it's not me. It's a shaggy thing. It's not me. It's the Parliament. And the Parliament is saying to you, why are you not doing that? And why are you going back and forth between you and us, people out there having hardship? That's a reality. I'm not making it up. How are we going to fix it? You are our agents. Governor, I rely on you, you know. I rely on the BOJ. All of us in here rely on you. You are our instrument of authority as a regulator. We want you to keep us abreast, keep us on our toes. We get elected by the people, yes, but you have to deliver to the people. Help us. So since you said you need the laws, Governor, submit to the clerk, the secretary of the committee, those lists of recommendations that can cause the ameliorations that my colleagues are speaking about here this morning, that you have recognized, you meaning the BOJ, not personal, you meaning the BOJ have recognized and yet to be acted upon. Let we quarrel and fight with our parliamentary colleagues to get those things done, because we are here to assist you. I'm yet to see any such list ever been made. Ever seen any such list. 1, 2, 3. Not some clouding in some statements and releases. 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. These need to be done. Formulate these legislative changes so that the BOJ can ensure that the public gets that service. That's all we're asking for. It's not complicated.
Right. So, Twin Peaks legislation has been in preparatory stages for the 18 months. We hope it will get to cabinet very shortly. I mean, the process to get legislation here, as you know better than I, or we should know intimately know, is very onerous. It's not my fault. It's not your fault either. It's just the way things work in this country. Well, I can't accept that. You know, I would like it to be done in 2 weeks. Can't get it done. You know, if you know the number of people we have working on Twin Peaks, and it can't even reach the cabinet yet, okay. I'm happy to know, member, that you rely on us. And I guess you are pleased that inflation is at 5%. That's our primary mandate, and we work on it every day. And I hope you are also pleased that the financial system has suffered no failures. The banks have suffered no failures in the last 6 years or so that I've been associated with it. And even further back, in fact, I don't think we have had a bank failure in 20 years in this country. So Bank of Jamaica is executing on its primary mandate. But to say again, we do need more powers. And to the extent, member, I accept and agree with you, that we can separate out certain issues and bring it to Parliament more quickly from the big Twin Peaks legislation, we will do so. And I accept that recommendation for your member.
Chair. Chair.
Member Wilson, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Governor, and thank you for the great work that you're doing. You made some very pointed statement this morning, and I just had a question. What had changed in the banking sector? What changed why we are now at this stage? I remember some years ago, we had several banks operating, people were going out, collecting their cash. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than now. But something happened. The bank started to close their branches across Jamaica. They started to install ATMs that weren't working. And now we're at a situation where people are left at a disservice. So what changed? Governor.
If I may.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it's a very good question, and I think in many respects, the jurisdiction, Jamaica, is a victim of its own success. I recall maybe 2 decades ago, the concerns had to do with banks not lending. We, over the last 2 decades, and even increasingly more so now, banks are lending. both in their mortgage portfolio, both in their installment credit portfolio. And along with that competition, we have had, on the back of a lot of economic stability, narrowing of spreads, interest rate spreads. Interest rates have been coming down, with the exception, obviously, of the tightening that we have had over the last 18 months. But what has occurred is that banks are now having to focus a lot on their cost structure in the context of increased competition, particularly in the mortgage sector, in the last couple of years, 8 or so years. And as they have been looking at their cost structure, the brick and mortar business model that was the heyday of the 90s has had to be relooked. This is not a Jamaica phenomenon. It's something that's is happening globally. In the United States, they too have seen a growth in e-banking vis-a-vis cash. So I think the question by the member can be responded to by saying that in a free market where entities are trying to maintain their margins in the context of a general lowering of interest rates from where they were maybe 2 decades ago, they've had to look at their cost structure. And out of that, you know, the ABM as a mechanism to deploy their financial services has taken the primary lead compared to what it was 2 decades ago. So I think it's a dynamic that is a function of where we are, and we have to, you know, monitor closely and see where it takes us. But it's just a outworking of that particular dynamic. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps a whole lot. And I would say that I understand the context a bit better. However, none of that is really the result of the customer. Customer is still the customer. And while the market has changed and the
Member Wilson?
Industry has changed, which is right. Yes, hello? Yes, are you hearing me?
Your internet service seems to be breaking up a bit. Could you repeat what your last 2 sentences?
Follow up to that is that the customer is the one who is bearing the brunt of all these changes. We have to see how soon we can, in whatever mechanism the BOJ has at its disposal, whether executive order, would it be possible for the BOJ to instruct the banks, not sure if it's within the legislation now, to ensure they have their machines up and running, even in places like in Westmoreland, where you have to travel hours and hours and wait hours and hours to get any form of cash. Is that possible within the current laws or regulations that the BOJ has?
Before you answer, BOJ, I just want to, I have noted your report here, and while my colleagues were asking questions, I got the chance to speed read through the report. And so to add to Member Wilson's question with regards to the ABM, the last time BOJ was here, we were talking, Member Wilson would recall as well, we were talking about the rural space in terms of ABM machines, and that the reports that we got, while we see overall 91% or 95% machine being in good giving service, we asked is it any at all possible to pull out places like Kellits, Frankfield, and Chapelton, and those rural spaces where we are saying this report allows the bank to look very good because they might be operating efficiently in the urban spaces, 100%. But in the rural spaces where the machine matters a lot because they have removed their full-scale operation from out of Chapelton and so on, can we get a report? Can you do a report that give us the rural spaces as to how efficient those ABM machines are working?
What we'd have done, Chairman, since the last meeting would have been to update our format for the report, which we make available publicly. So it's made available publicly with a 2-month lag, and we give the performance of each bank by parish, right? So the breakout of each bank's performance by the 3 KPIs is published and given by parish. Now, we had contemplated going by location. The challenge with that is that we have 899 ABMs. So what it means is that you're going to have a very long report. So,
just as a point of order, what I'm proposing, therefore, is that you may not do the 800 and odd location. I'm asking simply for some very rural spaces where ABM machine, where if that machine doesn't work, citizen has to travel 30 miles.
Not an exception report.
Right? So we're asking for an exception report.
Sure.
Right? Can we,
will we be
especially since we are complaining,
of...
and every time we come, we hear the governor talking about we need to Parliament need to regulate and so on, and we totally get it. But what we want the banks through BOJ to get is that our rural spaces, our rural citizens that they have chosen to stay in the rural space so that we can provide food for the urban space. Right? If we don't stay in the rural space and produce agricultural produce, then nobody will be able to eat. Right? But there are some services that we need. And there are just those spaces that we are asking BOJ to just, you might not be able to do all of them at once, but a roving thing. This month you focus on the Clarendon rural spaces. Next month you do Trelawney, Westmoreland the following month, so that we can get a sense, and the banks themselves, the top management, the senior management, the executive management of these banks can understand that the complaints that are made by citizens are real. And they will be able to take certain steps from the boardroom, make certain decisions from the boardroom, because we believe this is a boardroom decision matter, to get it out that rural folks that produce agricultural products need banking services as well.
I think you make a good point, Chair, and we are going to look to see whether we can, out of the data that we get at the very basic level, ATM machine by ATM machine, select out those that are underperforming grossly and highlight them. So whereas we have an overall figure of 90-odd%, to select out, say, the 10 worst performing and to kind of highlight them, I think is a very useful suggestion, and we're going to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, and your team. We have some other guests here, and we would really like to continue our discussions, but we know too that you have some pressing matters, and we want to thank you, and we want to thank you too, Governor, and your team for managing the economy in the way that you have. Inflation at 5%. A lot of people don't appreciate it when we are doing well, but when we are doing bad, it will be noised across the world. And the fact that we have not had any banking fallout for over 20 years, we want to commend you and your team and ask that you continue the good work. We look forward to seeing you again, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, I'll take the suggestion about the joint venture to our ministry and ask our minister to take that to Parliament and see whether we can go for it. I personally think it's a good suggestion, so let's see if we can do it.
Thank you, Governor. We are now going to move to the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. And so we ask the members of that team to introduce themselves, and then we take it from there. Can you just display your name tag so that the answered writers can identify you without asking? Can you go ahead, please? Yes. You're very far, so we are going to ask every time that you are going to talk, if you could identify yourself. And could you move over closer to where the Bank of Jamaica personnel were sitting so that it could also assist? So we now ask the PS to start. Wait a second. We have to turn off the other mics that are preventing your mic from coming on. Okay, very well. Go ahead now, PS.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Morning, Chairman. Morning, members. Based on the areas that we were asked to address in our report and the likely areas to be discussed this morning, I have a full team from the ministry's portfolio along with me this morning. So just to introduce myself, I'm Santia Bennett-Templar, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. To my left, Latoya Richards-Franklin, she is the Chief Technical Director in the ministry. And to my right is Mr. Harold Davis. Harold is the Executive Director for the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, acting in that position. I think he's well known to members. I also have with me Mr. Carl Hyatt, Principal Director for Policy Planning, Project and Research in the ministry. President Chilette Cox from JAMPRO, CEO for the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority, Mrs. Kelly Dawn Hamilton, Dr. Hugh Blake from the Trade Board, Dr. Velton Gooden, Executive Director for the Bureau of Standards, Ms. Lily Claire Bellamy, Executive Director for JIPO, Mr. Errol Barnaby, Acting CEO for Exim Bank, Yvette Sutherland Reid. Mrs. Sutherland Reid is the Senior Assistant Attorney General. Okay, so you want me to just, so we don't want me to repeat? Well, I'm coming to the end, member.
Just continue, PS. Just quickly, because what the member is saying is that time's of the essence. But we see that you're almost finished, so do continue and finish, please.
Okay, so Mr. Errol Barnaby. Errol, you can raise your hand. He is the CEO for the National Import-Export Bank, acting in that position. Mrs. Yvette Sutherland Reid, who is a Senior Assistant Attorney General at the Ministry. Mr. Dwayne Haynes, who is the Senior Director for the MSME Division of the Ministry, an area for discussion here this morning. And Ms. Renee Cowan, who is Director, Technical Coordination and Monitoring in the Office of the Permanent Secretary. And we also have Mrs. Farah Blake, who is the CEO for the Cannabis Licensing Authority.
And you have sent us a report. Do you want to give us some highlights from the report? Not to go through the entire report, but you may want to give us some highlights. Go ahead, please. I can
do a quick opening remark, Chair, members. We have two strategic priorities. Well, among the strategic priorities, of the ministry, we have two areas: to grow substantially the level of exports and to significantly increase local and foreign direct investment. Of course, allied to that for the ministry, we also have responsibility in terms of the quality infrastructure of the country, and that quality infrastructure supports both export of products as well as products and services going into the domestic economy. And in addition to that, of course, consumer affairs through the Consumer Affairs Commission. The sectors to be discussed today: Special Economic Zone Authority, cannabis industry, and the micro, small, and medium-sized manufacturing business are all critical to the ministry's achievement of these strategic objectives. The ministry has been resolute in its mission and directives and mandated central ministry, its agencies and departments to forge programs and policies to amplify our export capabilities and our commitment to strengthen local and foreign direct investment. And in this regard, there are a number of new programs and initiatives that have been implemented, are being implemented, and of course, we believe in continuous improvement. And so we are continuously looking at other programs that are continuing and ensuring that we are always improving how we deliver what we do to improve for the people of Jamaica. The ministry also continues to implement the productive input relief incentive, which is very important for our manufacturing sector as well. And in terms of manufacturing, of course, we're constantly looking at impact on job creation, capital investment, growth, and linkages. Linkages is one of the areas that we continue to emphasize in terms of growing our MSMEs, increasing our exports, and so on. We're committed to the growth and development of the MSME sector, which contributes an estimated 44% of GDP. So we therefore continue a raft of programs, many of which are implemented through the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. But in fact, a number of our agencies and departments offer services and programs for the MSME sector. And so we will have brought them here today with us, for instance, JIPO provides support, the Bureau of Standards provides support, Trade Board Limited provides support for the MSME sector. And so I have brought all of the heads of these agencies here today with me. And there's also work which is being spearheaded by the ministry in terms of support for the MSME sector, including the MSME business roadshows that we have and continue to implement. We are also seeking to increase productivity in the MSME sector with a major 1.7 million euro Digital Jamaica project, which is being funded by the European Union and which will see the digital training of up to 2,700 MSMEs. The ministry, through its agency, the Special Economic Zone Authority, is actively promoting the Special Economic Zone regime. JASEZA is tasked with attracting multinational investors and local investors within that zone. Notwithstanding well-known challenges in the cannabis industry, it is a Scheduled I drug, and that creates some challenges with respect to banking and so on. But CLA continues its work in terms of registration of companies and also in improving the services that it delivers to companies, reducing the time for processing and providing support in terms of ensuring that their regulatory functions are done efficiently and expeditiously. We are in the process as well of updating the 2016 in cannabis licensing interim regulations, which will see new provisions put into place to include community farming and small farming within that regime, and some information on that is already included in the report that we have provided. So, Chairman, I will leave it there and have ourselves available for the questions of the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Hilton.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Let me first welcome the Permanent Secretary and the team from the MIIC, and to wish each and every one of them a happy new year, a productive new year in the year ahead. P.S. I've looked at the report. It came late, but I've gone through it, and what I'm going to do is not so much focus on what you have in here. I'm going to focus on some things that are not in here, because I think that's the only way to. I will have some time to go over this and to interrogate these later on. But I really want to address some issues that are not in here. Firstly, let me share the observation that the work of this ministry is crucial. It is said all the time, and it is true. Therefore, my first question is, having regard to the priority focus that you've outlined, the three priority areas that you've outlined, could you then explain the data on both investment and trade, export trade, and why the gaps that currently exist to the extent that they do?
In terms of the report, we did send it on Friday evening. We were asked to submit that report on Friday, and we did submit.
Could you put the mic closer to the mic when?
Sure. Just to say that we did submit the report on Friday evening. I'm not sure what happened, but we had been requested to send it on Friday, and it was sent
we got them yesterday. I saw my report yesterday. So. Anyway, right. Okay. But as I said, I've looked at it, and
what I what I would want to do, Chairman, in terms of looking at exports and looking at investments, is call on my team to provide information on the actions and activities that we are currently undertaking in support of trade and investment.
No, Pierce. What I'd like is, because we're pressed for time, we have one other ministry here. I've read the report. I've seen the number of activities. What I'd like to hear from you as a peers, have you assessed the impact of all those activities on the focal areas that you pointed out are the key areas for the ministry? So that on export and on investment, the numbers, you would agree, the numbers are there. You can point them out. The Statin report just came out recently. Those numbers are not looking good. What do you take from that, therefore, as the effort now that need to be made, the adjustments, if any, that need to be made to make sure that the numbers are the economy, the numbers grow, the investment grow, and I must add that there are dark clouds on the horizon. Trump is going to deport a lot of people. Sure? He said so, and you better believe him. Well, anyway, if you don't believe him, well, you can say so. But I believe if you don't make the decision, you should prepare. And the investment, it means, therefore, that our current account is likely to be impacted. How are we preparing, addressing the current figures and preparing for what we believe will come? Some of us at least.
So, member, in terms of how we prepare for any dark clouds ahead, the work that we're doing, that we continue to improve on in terms of what we're doing, and the new strategies that we have outlined will all redound to greater impacts. In terms of investments, I'm going to ask President Cox from JAMPRO to speak about the investment figures. Our investment figures, as per the UNCTAD report, would have increased last year. We would have been one of the leading countries in the region in terms of investments last year. And I'll ask President Cox to provide those figures. Thank you.
Good morning, members. I'm Shalette Cox, President of JAMPRO. So to follow on from what the Permanent Secretary noted, Jamaica did have a 35% increase in foreign direct investment last year. Globally, there was a registered 3% decrease, and in the Latin American and Caribbean region, there was a 1% decrease. So comparatively speaking, we're doing much better in the face of the recovery from COVID-19. One thing I must mention to members is that the figures only speak to foreign direct investments. It does not speak to local direct investments, and it is a matter that we continue to have conversations and discussions with Statin, PIOJ, and BOJ to see how we can better measure the volume of local direct investments. But just to note that local direct investments is on the increase, and what we're seeing, for example, when you look at the sectoral breakdown of our FDI, one of the sectors that stands out is always tourism, and we've seen physically seen a lot of tourism investment happening. A lot of it is classified as local direct investment, interestingly enough. And so it does not get captured in the numbers that we talk about. There are other projects that are happening. For example, just last week, Caribbean Broilers opened a $15 billion investment project in Hill Run. We have the Pinnacle Investments, which is coming out of Chinese and is a mix of local and foreign, that is happening in Montego Bay. So there's a sporadic number of investments happening. How are we supporting that going forward? Is that we have, at our board level, approved a 4-year strategic plan for the organization. And under that strategic plan, we have 4 pillars for our strategic objectives. And one of the pillars for our strategic objective is completely focused on investments. And I want to use the exact wording that we agree on. And it is to proactively seek and facilitate 180 investment projects and 250 linkages contracts by year 4. And how we work with investors in our new structure is that investments go hand in hand with linkages, because we want to make sure that as larger companies that are making large investments happen in Jamaica, whether it starts from foreign or local, that they are buying locally. And so we have a much stronger linkages program than we used to before. Some of the initiatives that we are putting in place, and there's one that we are about to start, is financing. What we have found is that we have a number of projects that have come forward, very good ideas, things that are viable, things that have a demand in the market, but they don't have financing. And so over the next 2 weeks, we have identified 15 financial institutions, not banks, but also the alternative investment institutions that we will be meeting with. And we want them to frankly tell JAMPRO, what sectors are you looking at? What size investments are you willing to look at? What are your minimum requirements that you're asking for investors to have? And how are you willing to support these projects?
Madam President.
Sorry.
I really would like to go on and on, but we have limited time.
Okay.
Let me just ask them, given all of these initiatives, you mentioned the 4-year going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the question in the context not just of last year, but the previous period, and you single out last year. My question, because my follow-up question therefore is, why then, how then you explain that you have increasing numbers of investment, but you have a lag in the economy, the economic data doesn't support that, and the export data doesn't support that. And here I'm talking about exported merchandise export. Tourism, we all know, is one of the bright spots in every economy, and that's across administration. Tourism has always attracted the highest level of investment. So if you exclude tourism, what does the picture look like for investment?
So we do have other sectors that JAMPRO facilitates investment projects in. And so for example, one of the projects I mentioned just now was the Caribbean Broilers project. That's a manufacturing project. Well, manufacturing and agribusiness, because it starts out with the poultry side of the business. So there are a number of manufacturing projects that has happened. Wisynco also did a major investment last year to completely redo their capital investments. In terms of how that impacts on the export side, we have seen an increase in non-traditional exports, you would agree, or 22 to 2023. We do not yet have the complete numbers for exports for 2024, but there was an increase in 2023 over 2022. And you will agree that, let us all recall that 2020 to 2022 was not normal business years. And even so, within COVID, there were pockets of increases in exports that we did see. So I do think that there has been some positive impacts on exports, Mr. Hilton. I'm not quite sure in terms of the numbers what exactly the query should focus on.
Figures, then I'm going to expect them in writing. But if you, I posit my question by saying, I clarified my question by saying, tourism, minus subtract tourism from that investment figure. And what does the figure look like without the tourism sector in it, firstly? And then secondly...
Member Hilton, for clarification for me, are you talking foreign investment or local investment? Because the president did mention that there's a separation, foreign investment and local investment, and she stated also, Member Hilton, that tourism, you asked about that tourism is not seen in a part of foreign investment. She mentioned that. So what I'm asking, if you could, in asking your question, if you are talking about foreign investment or you are talking about local investment, and because you may mention about some figures that you have not, but you have not said what the figures are. So could we get some more clarity, because I want to follow the argument. Thank you.
Chairman, the member, in her response, she could not say tourism is not FDI. She did not say that. She said aspects of tourism, particularly linkages, are considered local investment. My question to her, I preface my remark by saying foreign exchange earnings is going to prove very critical now and going forward. What, therefore, are there two aspects of foreign exchange, the export earnings and the foreign direct investment, that are critical to driving the economic growth numbers. I accept that domestic investment is critical. It goes without saying. We're talking about the foreign earnings that will drive investment and to address the current account situation. Those are my questions, and I ask her to exclude the tourism, to look at the other numbers and to say, what does that look like? She deliberately answered my question by saying last year, and I'm saying, and then she went on to talk about project for the next 4 years. I asked about the next, why limited to the last 4 years, the last year, and what happened to the next 3 or 4 years as you wish. But the point is, the economic number of 3.5% decrease, the growth in the economy, minus 3.5% growth, is affected by these numbers. How you then explain the minus 3.5% growth in the economy?
Turn on your mic, please. Turn on your mic.
Sorry. Member Jackson, were you going to say something?
Well, that's an extension. I hear all these numbers being thrown around and how wonderful things are. But as the member said, the macro data indicate a 3.5 minus. Minus is not doing well. Minus is doing bad. So whichever way you spin it about how much growth since COVID, the fact is that we're doing bad. And we must say that. And the question we're asking and want to find out, what contributes to those decline, and to identify what can be done to make it better, is not to stand behind some glow. I hear you mention about 31% increase in one area when the regional number is about 3%, and so we're doing good. We have a 3.5% decline macro in Jamaica. Madam Pierce, your ministry, 1 second, I can respond after. Madam Pierce, whichever way you spin it, the Ministry of Industry is the ministry of the government of Jamaica that is charged with the responsibility of making growth takes place. Indeed, it requires cross-portfolio collaborations in agriculture, in education, and also in works. But you are the growth motor of the country. And if there's no growth taking place, your ministry is not succeeding. That is a bottom line. That's as black and white as that. I just sick and tired of these whole heap of throw around of fancy words and numbers when the bottom line is showing we're not doing well. And who is to make it better must take responsibility to make it better rather than trying to explain it away when we have to live the reality of minus growth. because we, on both sides of the aisle, we live the reality of people out there in the community, that those numbers translate into life quality or lack thereof. So I'm accustomed to getting many of these reports, sometimes sick and tired of them. But I want the result. And what we are here for, and even this invitation to come here, is not to say how well we're doing here. That is a passing way. Because however good we're doing, we have a mandate to do it better and much better. That's what you must come here and tell us to do. Where are your challenges? Where are your inhibitions? Where are your problems? And the problem though too, PS, with all frankness. Some of you afraid to talk about what the problem because you don't afraid to go back to your ministry. That is the real truth. I've seen it long enough. You don't want to talk about the problem. It's few permanent secretaries, few, not all, will come here and say, this is a problem. We're having a problem here. We need this to be done over there, over here. And we want some fix and we want some assistance to get it right. That's what the Parliament and the committee wants. Not to come give us some glowing report. And now when the meeting is over, we go back into the reality out there.
Member Jackson, the question.
I just repeat.
I have some others specifically in one of the sectors.
Just make some preliminary response, Chair.
Thank you.
Just to say that the figure of a 3.5% decline, I believe that is for the last quarter. That is not a cumulative year. We do know that there would have been Hurricane Beryl that would have happened during in July. That would have had some impact. For us to speak specifically to a one-quarter decline, we would have to go back and do more details. We have answered in terms of the questions. If I could please finish, member, could I finish?
Member, is it a point of order? All right, go ahead.
If you look at that, we want the figure. That's why I said, why not 4 years? Why the last year? Because the numbers will show that before COVID, there was a decline, the economy declined before COVID. When COVID hit, the economy went into a V shape and came back up, but it continued that decline, even before burial.
Member, I'm asking, I just want to shape the question to have a better understanding of your question. Remember, you said before COVID there was a decline.
Yes.
And what was this?
It was not negative. It was about a 0.8%.
A point what?
A 0.8%. 0.8%
decline. All right. Can we now turn over to the PS and the president of JAMPRO to respond to the question?
Chairman, please. I want to set my question.
No, member, remember you say it's a point of order. And the PS, we have invited them here. And she was in mid-flight of answering you. So could you just
could you keep the answers brief and not a story?
Can we just, if anything, member, we can set a next date to invite the other. And we don't want that. But I think it's very important, member, that we have invited our guests here and to really allow them to answer us so that the public can get a fulsome understanding, the best way they know. Thank you, member. Just allow the PS to finish her. She was in mid-flight, and you interjected, and you said it's a point of order. That question that you have now to follow up, can you just hold it and allow her to finish, please, member? Thank you, please.
Chairman, but I'm insisting on answers.
So I'm seeking to answer Member Hilton.
Can you turn on back your mic for me, please?
Asked to come to speak about particular information, and we were asked to provide a report, which we did. What you're asking for would seem to be an economic analysis of the economy. how well the economy performs overall, what is happening year one as against year two as against year three, is a much broader analysis. Whereas this ministry is a Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, impacts on the economy come from many other ministries. We have Ministry of Agriculture here with us, for instance, today. They are one of the ministries that would have impact in terms of the economy and right across the board. I understand what Member Jackson said. Clearly there is a need for collaboration. Clearly there's a need for ongoing improvement, and this is something that we seek to do every day. If what is wanted here today is an economic analysis of the economy and right across the economy and sectors and work of various ministries with which we collaborate, then that would require us to go back, do that analysis and research, and bring that information forward. We have come here today based on a specific letter indicating areas for discussion. We have come here today prepared to deal with those areas of discussion. The Planning Institute of Jamaica regularly has quarterly reviews, that press conferences, where they do an analysis of the economy as a whole. They provide information as to what is happening in the economy and posits information as to what is affecting that overall performance of the economy and so on. So we would not be in a position today to go back to what would have been the growth or lack of growth in 22 or 21 or 2018 or 19, which would require now looking at various sectors and so on. That would not be possible for us to do today, and in fact, that would require involvement of organizations such as the Planning Institute of Jamaica and Statin, who are the ones who would do that kind of detailed analysis. But we are very happy to be here. We were asked to prepare information on particular areas. We have come ready and available to answer questions with respect to those areas. But we could not sit here and provide detailed answers about what happened in the economy as a whole in 2020 or 2019 and so on at this point in time. Thank you, Chair.
We do understand that our invitation was very specific, and we take that as well. There are some times when we invite our guests here and we ask questions outside of our letter that would have sent. But I do understand what you're saying, and therefore I'll ask Member Hilton to respond.
Chairman, let me say, if the ministry's work, as we have identified, is the driving force in the economy. And the ministry is not here to talk about the impact of its programs and policies, then what are we talking about? But just so we don't waste any more time, let me get to some specific then, since they want specific programs. Let me get some specific. Permanent Secretary, could you then, the ministry and the minister has undertake some foreign investment, for a foreign investment program. Could you, and that program has been extensive, as I understand it, with several visits to several countries for the period from 2021 onwards. And it is to that I'm saying the numbers, and again, the minister is not responsible for tourism, of that I'm clear. And hence my question about the other areas of the economy for which Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce is responsible, and presumably those were the visits that the ministers were making. Could you, there are some questions that I posed previously elsewhere, and I'm going to pose them now. If you can't answer them now, I want them in writing. But I'm asking those questions because those are detailed questions having to do with the ministry's work. And I presumably, and that could cover, unfortunately, I did not see the letter that was sent out. If I'd seen it, I could better order my question because you're saying that those are the remit that they came to answer today.
The letter that was sent out was based on the discussion here.
I'm saying, I might have seen it, I didn't see it, but we don't need to be detained. I'm going to ask the questions. So, Madam Permanent Secretary, we need a breakdown of the cost of those visits. The Parliament is entitled to know what those visits cost the taxpayers of Jamaica. We need a breakdown of those costs of those visits, the number of visits taken, the composition of those delegations, particularly as it relates not to the private sector element, but as it relates to government of Jamaica, the ministry, agencies and ministries that are involved. That's one. Two, what then are the specific economic impact, both cumulatively and specifically, of those visits and those trips, those investment trips? And I want particularly to focus my attention on visits to Latin America. Latin America, not in the Caribbean, Latin America. Visits were made to Latin America, and we'd like to get some response from that. I'd like also to ask the questions about whether JAMPRO, and I see the JAMPRO representative here today, but my impression and the received information is that JAMPRO no longer leads that investment push. And if I'm incorrect, then I'd like the numbers to indicate and for the agency to tell me what then are the programs that JAMPRO is undertaking as JAMPRO. Not just the ministry, but as JAMPRO. I'd like to ask a question of the special economic zone. The special economic zone, the number of investments that have the new investments that have been brought into the special economic zone since 2022, let's start 2022, post-COVID, and the number of investors or investments that have left the special economic zone. And what are the impact of that in terms of employment, the impact of those leaving the zone. Also, with respect to the special economic zone, I'd like to know, I've seen it advertised that amendments are coming to the special economic zone. Those amendments have been announced. Are those amendments milestones that have been reached? Are things to be done? And if there are things to be done, are they requiring legislative or budgetary supports? Please indicate whether they are complete, they require legislative or budgetary supports. Let me, with respect to the ministry overall, there are a number of persons at senior levels who have left the ministry, heads, a number of them heads of agencies. I would like to know specifically what are the numbers of persons who have left the ministry since 2022 that had left in circumstance where they were challenging their department, their departure. Some of them have either sued or are contesting those departure. Yes, I know some specific cases. Some of them were very public. And if you don't know or recall, let your research what I'd like answers to those questions. Who are those members that have been supported, a number of them senior technical level persons and heads of agencies. In particular, I had reason to enjoin the cannabis in a discussion about the Cannabis Legal Licensing Authority, where there are continuing issues about employees dissatisfaction at the agencies and have asked that certain intervention be made. And those were all public matters. What now is happening at the Cannabis Licensing Authority, and has there been the intervention at the Cannabis Licensing Authority?
I take it that, I mean,
Chairman.
Cannabis Licensing
yes,
Authority.
but as you had said earlier, as well, as you had said earlier, those questions were never anticipated. Can you allow me to finish? Remember that you have those questions were never written to the ministry, and that you're asking them those questions, some of which to my mind are minister's questions, but that's okay. I think the PS will respond to those questions if she is unable to, as you have said, if she is unable to answer them now, she will respond to them. Of course, she has a wealth of support that would be able to guide her and give her the answers. P.S., can you go ahead, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That seems to be a long list of questions. And clearly we would not, for instance, be in a position today to articulate the overall cost of business missions, for instance, that might have been taken. Again, we would not have walked with that kind of information today. This is all information that can be provided. And so, yes, I was just saying, member, that my understanding from the listing coming from Member Hilton is that he's anticipating that we will provide this information at a future point, not that all of that would be provided in answers to him here this morning.
Yeah, but that's true. And Chairman, let me say, I will then follow up with a written set of questions to the Permanent Secretary after this meeting. A written set of questions. Since time does not allow, and nor can she provide the answers, I will follow up with a written set of questions. But I did ask specifically, and believe you can answer, the issue about the Cannabis Licensing Authority and what intervention, if any, has been made to address what has been a ongoing public discussion about the dissatisfaction of the employees at the Cannabis Licensing Authority.
So, Chairman, we do have the CEO of the Cannabis Licensing Authority here with us this morning. The Cannabis Licensing Authority is going through changes that will positively impact the organization, including looking at the organizational structure, how we then ensure that it is fit for purpose, and how staff get transitioned from the temporary employment that they now have to permanent employment. That is one of the things I think that's going to make a very big difference. There have been some governance interventions as well. So let me ask Ms. Blake, Farah Blake, to provide you with some details.
Before the director comes, the CEO comes, could I make it easier for her so she can just answer these questions? What would you consider to be your 2 or 3 major achievements at the Cannabis Licensing Authority since you have been the CEO? Just give me the 2 or 3 major achievements of the Cannabis Licensing Authority.
Member Jackson, she had indicated, is that a part of you want to, so while the CEO is about to answer, she can note those questions from Member Hilton, but you can just add your questions. And then I know after that we're going to have some questions from Member Wilson. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I am a stakeholder in the cannabis industry, so for disclosure. And out of that, I have some intimate knowledge of the workings within the industry. I think my questions don't so much have to go with the current CEO, because I gather that is pretty recent. And the issues with the CLA go way beyond the tenure of the current CEO. Some of them for over 5, 6 years. When I read through the report and I see those lists of regulatory changes that are on the table, I almost cried. Because one would get the impression reading that report as if, wow, things are happening. The enabling legislation for this Cannabis Licensing Authority was done in 2015, almost 10 years ago. The CLA came into being in 2016, 9 years ago. Those set of legislations were to enable the commencement of the industry within some legal framework. Since 2015 and now, there is not one piece of legislation or regulation have come before the Parliament. To my knowledge, none, in respect of enhancing that legal framework for the growth of the industry. Specifically, and I've spoken to the chairman of the CLA about it very recently. You have a situation there where you want to build this industry, enable it. You have cultivation license, you have retailing license, transportation, and you have provision for research. All of those other activities sit on cultivation. But yet you preside over an entity where the license for a cultivator is 1 year. One cycle of cannabis is about 5, 6 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
No, man, we're talking about medical cannabis. Right? Like 3 months too. That's not a contentious issue. But a cultivator have to resubmit renewal every year. A retailer does every 3 years. When plants are in the ground to continue to be nurtured, your license can expire, you have to get a new license. You go through all the process of fit and proper. Police record, this, that, everything. You CLA, you ministry, Madam Pace, your ministry, presides over that. And you say you're facilitating an industry. A firearm license is for 5 years, a lethal weapon like a firearm. And their license for every 5 years. They collect an annual fee, yes, for the revenue side, because they want to raise money. I know it's in there. You have subjected the players in the industry to submit documentation every single year. And you say you're serious about enabling that industry. Come on, man. And then you put in the report that at the end of December 2024, you have these set of regulations. You guys are not serious. What about the other people in the industry, like the small traditional growers? Last time the CLA, the ministry came here and tell us about they had promulgated some alternative, forget the right term for it, to allow traditional farmers and so forth to come into the legal provision. Nothing has happened since then. You tell me about how that sector has changed. Nothing. And we hear all kind of big speeches and reports and data. Nothing has happened there. And you give reports about how many applications made, how many licenses granted there. Behind those applications and behind those licenses granted, what is happening in the industry? Come back to the point that we make about outturn. It is economic activities that cause growth to happen. Not the statistical report by themselves. The actual activities that facilitate investors and players, you are making life miserable for people in the sector. Not so much by what you do, but by what you don't do. Don't do.
Member Jackson.
So I want you to tell us in those, no man, don't rush me. You, when your time comes to talk, you talk. Keep quiet. Time come.
Yes.
Time come for me to speak. Well, you
Member
know,
Jackson, please don't. Remember, we have invitees.
But
here.
you must tell him to keep
Member
quiet.
Jackson, don't.
Or throw him out.
Right. Can you just ask the question, Member Jackson?
Mr. Chairman, our being here this morning and our interrogation of the sectors is about making things happen positively. Not just the table reports. And we want to know I want to know why you all don't put any, why is it that the regulations after 9 years don't even reach Parliament yet?
Finally, if I could begin to
go ahead,
provide
PS.
some response.
Wait a second,
members.
PS. Turn on back. Member Jackson, can you just turn off your mic, please? PS, wait a second until your mic is turned on. I'll indicate. Go ahead now.
So Member Jackson, in giving your responses, what we're giving you is answers to the questions that you have posed. I will provide some answers, and I will call on the CEO to provide other answers. There has been legislation that has been done since 2016, and I can ask my head of legal to speak about that. But legislation has been passed in respect of this since 2016, so that detail can be provided. In terms of some of the matters that you have raised, though, the ministry is very advanced in the legislative process to update the 2016 interim regulations. And the 2016, the revisions to the 2016 regulations will deal with much of the things that you have raised. So, for instance, duration of licenses. Licenses will all now carry the same duration once that legislation goes into effect. The growers will be able, the cultivators will be able to continue to grow crops during any extension period. So we've listened to the industry, and the regulatory changes are coming to put into place the matters that are required. Legislative changes do not happen at the snap of a finger. We have to go through the office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel. We have to go through the Attorney General's chambers. And what I can tell you is that the process is now significantly advanced in terms of the drafting of the changes to the regulation that will deal with all of those matters. The revised interim regulation will also have provisions in that regulation for small farmers and for community farming. The fact is that to adequately and properly address those matters, it's a regulated medical cannabis industry. The interventions have to be grounded in law, and the legal provisions are significantly, the legal provisions, if I can finish, please, member, the legislative provisions are significantly advanced. Now, there are some matters which can be handled administratively in terms of improvements in how we regulate processing time, our customer service, how we work with industry in terms of regulating this very specific industry. Where administrative actions can be taken to create improvements, those administrative actions have been taken. A lot of them are outlined in the report that we have provided, and I will ask the CEO, who would be closer to those matters, to detail for you some of those administrative actions. But in terms of license duration, inclusion of small farmers, community farmers, all of that is very advanced in the amendments coming forward to the interim regulations. So I'll ask CEO now to tell you in terms of improving our relationship with the farmers, how we regulate, how we improve the speed and handling of matters. In respect of that, I will ask the CEO to comment on that.
Member Jackson, PS,
Sure,
please.
Sorry, Chair.
Please. Right, can you just turn your mics off for me, please? Right. Member Clark, as has indicated for some time now, to add to the questions. So, Member Clark, you want to go ahead and add your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And whilst I understand the emotions of Member Jackson, he has to give the floor a chance. And so I listened to the PS saying that the CEO will respond. So before the CEO responds, I want to add 2 queries so that maybe that person can give us the answer just the same. I remember in 2017 or so, I would have moved a motion then that the inclusion of the small farmers be a part of the situation going forward. We are now in 2025, and Madam Pierce is saying that there's a piece of legislation that is to come to us. When is it going to get to us so that it will bear fruit for the small farmer is yet another question. But at the same time, Mr. Chairman, I remember distinctly that the CEO and other persons from the cannabis entity came and they made a presentation. And one of the questions that I had asked then was, why is it that the persons who are sent out into the fields to at least gather information to regulate a situation are those very persons who for 30-odd years or 20-odd years of their life, they spent fighting against the same industry? What do we expect to get in those reports? 1, and 2, they did mention to us that there were 2 pilot projects. I think one was in Orange Hill, somewhere around Westmoreland, and another one, I can't remember the other one. What has happened to those 2 projects? Where are the report as to the project that the government would have undertaken? I also remember that in the motion that was put forward, that we said that technical services from the ministry should have been given to our small farmers. Because remember, for years, many years, decades, it is the small farmers who used to have to pay the penalty. To date, some still have the situation against a name, not yet expunged, not yet cleared. Where are we? I am also asking a question. In the legislation that is supposed to come to Parliament, is there anything for the small man who, at this point that we are going to regulate it into a formal industry, are we going to create a space to say to John Public that because of what transpired then and where we are going now, we will now look at expunging the situation in a general format for all those who bear the brunt of a penalty back then?
Thank you, Member. Before we answer, I just want to emphasize that CLA is responsible for the medicinal cannabis industry. And so anything that we do, anything that we comment on is in relation to the medicinal cannabis industry. the programs that would have happened, that community program member that you would have spoken about, that community program would have informed what is being done now in terms of provisions in the interim regulations. The interim regulations to provide for the more expanded and resourced special community program and alternative development program. That legislation is currently at the Attorney General's chambers for final review. So it's been through the process before. The changes requested by the Attorney General's chambers have been made, and it's at the Attorney General's chambers for final review. And that legislation will provide the legal framework within which we can effectively work with the farmers, the small farmers, in terms
there's a point of order being raised.
Mr. Chairman, on a point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, the Madam Pierce is going on a route that is taking us away from the targeted point.
What is?
We have asked specific questions, and we're not getting there. And we are also pressed for time. So I would ask you, Mr. Chairman, if we could ask Madam Pierce to just go straight to the point, the question that we asked, so that we, not only us, because John Public is watching, and they are the ones that we are here about. And so if you get directly to the answer, rather than, as my colleague said, the response, if you get to the answer to the question, it will make life a lot easier.
P.S., could you just answer the question pointedly for us, please?
Amendments to the interim regulations, which will provide the legal framework to accommodate the community special permit and the alternative development program for small farmers, is currently being reviewed by the Attorney General's chambers. That review is at an advanced stage because the legislation has been before the Attorney General's chambers previously. Amendments they have asked for have been done, and so it's now back to them for final review. This is the interim regulations that will provide for the small farmers' inclusion in the medicinal cannabis industry. That legislation, as I indicated before, will also deal with licensing type, extension of the period for licensing type. All of that is coming forward in that legislation, which is very near to completion.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Madam Sec, because Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Member Clark.
I am from a very small community that is represented by my colleague, Western Westmoreland, a small community named Sheffield, farming district. All that you have said, Madam P.S., means nothing to the small farmer down there. So what we are asking is when. Give us a time. Don't tell us that it is the process is not what happened every day. They have the task of meeting up with the persons who are put in place to regulate and to enforce the law. And so if we don't get quickly to the point, or if it is not straightforward to the JCF and JDF and the general public as to how to move forward, then we're always going to be at a loggerhead. Not only that, madam, we want to understand what is it for the small. I hear you mention that the CLA has the authority or the regulatory duty for medicinal cannabis. Every single strain, Cali, Sensimilla, and any of the other strains that have currently are of medicinal values. So I don't understand if we're separating some from some. Is it that what you call medicinal cannabis is going to be on one side, and then you have some that you say, okay. So one you won't be charged for, but the other, if you're caught with, you will be charged for. Is that what you're saying to us? Because I don't know of two ganja, no one ganja or one cannabis.
Right. In terms of the legislation, my best estimate is that it will be completed before the end of this quarter based on the stage of the consultations and review by the Attorney General's chambers. Now, the final deadline will come from the Attorney General's chambers, but based on our experience with legislation and where we have reached, our estimate is that it will be completed before the end of this quarter. In terms of the provisions for small farmers, remember, member, and I'm going to ask the CEO to speak a little bit more specifically with that, we have international obligations that we must meet. The regulation will require that the growing and selling of medicinal cannabis has to be within particular parameters and so on. Now, she's much closer to it than I am, so I will ask her, I'll ask her to speak to that because it's a regulated industry, it's a Schedule 1 drug, right? So what I will do, I'll ask her to speak to how the arrangement would work in terms of how the small farmers will be linked with larger farmers in terms of takeoff of product going into the medicinal cannabis industry. So I'll ask CEO Blake to speak on that matter.
I take it though, Madam PS, that the members are interested in the regulatory framework and the dates of implementation and other things that will fast track those things that were in the pipeline from 2015, 2016, and the members are thirst for a schedule from the ministry. There's a schedule, and if the members can get a commitment of a schedule to say, the end of this quarter, this will be out of the AG. We see it coming to Parliament by what date, and the other steps that is needed for our small farmers. I'm getting the idea, or what is being asked here, is the small farmers that have been excluded and still has to interact with the authorities. And so if those steps can be scheduled so that the citizenry, the businessmen, the stakeholders who are interested can have a clear idea, and we can all hold you accountable. But when the answers to the questions are coming very generalized and no dates, the members have issues with it because they have been here before.
So in terms of a date, Chair, what I would expect is that the interim regulation, that the updates to the interim regulation would come forward before the end of this quarter. And we are following up very closely with the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel to have it come forward as quickly as possible. We are seized of the urgency. It's pretty comprehensive changes that are included in that interim regulations, and we expect that that will become, our part of the work is done. We expect that the Chief Parliamentary, the Attorney General's Chambers will complete their review so that the legislation can move forward before the end of this quarter. So before the end of March, we would expect that the interim regulations will come forward.
Mr. Chairman, in light of the fact that this committee has raised these issues for some time now, PS, and period over which your leadership, it's a few years, this matter. And the truth of the matter, Chairman, the onus is not so much with the CLA, you know. It's with the ministry. Because the CLA carry out a regulatory function. We're talking about facilitating the industry. It lies outside of the CLA itself. And there is, right across the board, there is a distinct effort to make sure that regulatory function and facilitatory function are not necessarily conjoined, because there may be some conflict. So the ministry is the one who has failed the industry. I have sat here when your ministry sat in that section and give big report on undertaking, and 2-3 years later, the member from St. James made it. Nothing has happened except you come and tell us about what is before the Chief Parliamentary Council. Against that background, Chairman, I'm suggesting those draft legislation that you have sent to CPC, we would like to see a copy of it here. Because they have to end up coming here anyway, so that the committee can be apprised fully and comprehensively of what is it that you are seeking to have done in light of the many questions that we have been asking for which no results have been forthcoming, so that we don't become reactive at the end of the process, and if we need to intervene, we can do so before then.
The request is noted, member. We had looked previously at whether we could have undertaken the inclusions and provisions administratively. The position coming forward is that they needed to have been codified in law, and so we have now ensured that that codification is happening in law. The request for the information is noted.
But no,
member,
you said it, no, a little bit there. You said noted. Is it going to be acted on?
Precisely.
Okay.
Member Jackson, I'm going to, time is of the essence right now. So Member Hilton, you say you have 3 quick questions. After you ask those 3 quick questions, now I know that Member Wilson is also wanting to ask some questions, but members, the chambers need to be prepared for Parliament, and already we have staff of the Parliament preparing the chambers, and they would like for us. So can Member Hilton go 3 quick questions? You want to have a conversation, Member Wilson, so I can. All right, member. Go. Yes, go ahead.
This question is for the SEC authority. The report indicates that you are developing pathway roadmap for the logistic hub. Could you tell us what in the enabling the recommendation coming forward from the logistic hub market analysis and master plan? Are any of those recommendations from there, and where are you in developing that roadmap? She's trying to.
Turn on your mic for me, please. Just press. You have to try your next mic. And I don't know. Okay.
Thank you very much, member. My name is Kelly Dawn Hamilton, Chief Executive Officer at the Special Economic Zone Authority. In relation to the roadmap for the Logistics Hub Initiative, Member Hilton, what we are doing, we're not recreating the wheel. We already have a comprehensive roadmap that was developed with the help of the World Bank. What we're doing, given that it would have been 6 to 7 years since the past development of that, is updating that roadmap. Given that we have had issues such as what's going on with the Panama Canal, the droughts there, Suez Canal, what we have seen coming out of COVID with supply chains, we're taking the opportunity to update. So we would have gotten support from the World Bank to support that work. So that where we are now with that, members, is we are working through the engagement of the World Bank in what that will look like and what our timelines will look like for that to happen. In terms of what we already have on the table now for timelines is a 6-month timeline that it will take to do that work. We are pushing to condense that timeline, sir, because we have done such considerable work already. And so that is the work that we're doing now in relation to the Logistics Hub Initiative and the action plan.
It's late, but it's welcome. It's late, but welcome. May I ask Jaipur the next question? Where are we on the work that is being done on valuation for IP?
Go ahead, member.
Are we to take that piece to I hit my knee on there. I hit my knee.
Oh, sorry.
This place is not designed for people who are tall.
Yes.
Sorry.
Hush.
Okay.
Take a break. So we're told.
We have been working, sir, as you are aware. We had a project with a number of members of the MSME sector. The challenge that we face is that I'm trying to find the right words, the right way to say this. We want to help the members, but it's difficult when they don't have the correct finances in place. So they have a business, they're earning, but they don't have proper record keeping. So in terms of being able to accurately utilize their intellectual property as collateral becomes difficult. So we have been working with them. The Jamaica Business Development Corporation is helping them to show them that, yes, you have a business, because sometimes you think you are doing very well, but the reality is you're spending more than you're actually bringing in. So you have a lot of money, but you're not taking into consideration that you're spending much more than you're actually earning. So the project is still on the way. It's being reviewed. 2 of our main commercial banks in Jamaica are part of the project, as you're aware, and they are willing to offer the loans to them using the intellectual property as collateral. But there needs to be some tidying up that is done. But it is an ongoing project because we're not letting it go, because this is an important.
No, I have one small.
Last question, Member Hilton.
But I couldn't allow the JBDC to come here and not feel one. I could not allow the JBDC to come here and not feel one question. The ministry has taken the entire phalanx and then tell me that it only can answer some narrow question. What you? I see that there are a number of there's an outreach program that is now taking place, going to the small businesses. How different is that from the business clinic that was in place from 2013 or 2014 onwards? Is this a different program? And if so, how different?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Member Hilton and committee members. Good afternoon. There are similarities. First of all, this one is certainly being driven by our ministry. And it brings on board the JBDC is a critical partner in the rollout and implementation. you might know, but we manage a couple of the components of the roadshow. You know, we curate a couple of the components of the roadshow for sure. So this initiative, and the PS is right here, brings together the agencies of the ministry and other agencies and organizations that one difference is that we have a significant amount of support from IDB, perhaps. Yes, we do. But I think it's a scaling. It's an attempt to scale what it is that was initiated 15 years ago.
Thank you. Members, we have to close it there. Time is upon us. We owe the Ministry of Agriculture a big apology because you want to let me hear from because give him the privilege. He's the deputy clerk. Let me give him the privilege.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I do think that because of how interested the discussion has been between members and the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, we didn't get a chance to field any question to Ministry of Agriculture because somewhat ties, the discussion here ties to both ministries. And so I would hasten to ask of you and the members that we decide on a new date when only two of them, both ministries, will come back to us and we will have them for the day or for the duration of the time to field questions. Because I too have some more pointing questions that I would really love John Public to get answers to.
What linkages?
And I must take the time to say a warm welcome to persons like Dr. Hugh Blake, Mrs. Kelly Dawn Hamilton, and many others from the ministries that I have had interaction with. You have been exemplary.
Member, thank you for the Christmas greetings. But we have greetings right across Jamaica, greetings right across the world. I just want not to get in trouble with the marshal at this point, and I said deputy clerk, but it's deputy speaker who sometimes is our speaker, and we do not want to get into any more trouble. So I want to thank both ministries that are here. Time is upon us. We are going to invite you back, and you will inform you of the date because we have not settled on a date. And after this, we will be talking to the members to see, and our clerk of the committee to see the best date going forward. Please accept our apology, Ministry of Agriculture, for you coming here. We know this was not an easy feat for you to come here and so on. But I trust that you would have heard some of the conversation with regards to your sister ministry, the Ministry of Investment, Industry, and Commerce. And so you will also prepare yourself to answer some of the twin questions that will come the next time. So I just want to thank you all because I have many questions to ask the Ministry of Agriculture. Many questions to ask you. And so I wanted the opportunity, but be that as it may, I will get the opportunity the next time. I see Member Jackson.
To the CPC. Could you say how soon those will be made available to the committee? No, I said when. My question is, they are already prepared? No, the session not closed yet. But
Member Jackson, you
no,
asked the
ask
question.
for that.
Yes,
give a time.
You can turn off
your,
you ask the question. Turn off your mic. No. Is the PS prepared to answer that now? Yes or no?
I have some consultations on that, Chair. Thank you.
A comment.
Can I thank both ministries, and we will advise you and we'll send letters for additional information that we would like you to provide us with in a report before you come to us the next time. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Members, we are still in session. I would like to close off the session. We are at we're at any other business, and being that there's no other business at this time, we need to set a date for the next meeting, and the date that is being we are at the end of. Right, so after the budget, and so we'll run robin the dates. All right? Very well. Then be no other business. This meeting has now been adjourned. Thank you.